It might be tough to believe, but gaming's premier side-scrolling platformer mascot has been jumping and stomping his way through the third dimension for nearly 30 years, and he's faced a lot of 3D boss fights during that time. I'm Kyle with 1UP Binge, and this is every 3D Mario boss weak to powerful. And we're actually beginning, fittingly enough, at the beginning, with King Bob-omb, also known as Big Bob-omb. He's the boss of the very first stage of the very first world of the very first 3D Mario game. But unfortunately for this oversized explosive, he is also a complete joke, only able to lumber slowly towards the plumber and attempt to toss him off the mountain. Good thing it's all uphill from here. Several bosses in Super Mario 64 are just larger versions of regular enemies, and Big Boo here is a translucent shadow of the terrifying monstrosity he'd grow to become in Luigi's Mansion. You'll face him 3 times, but each time Mario simply has to ground pound him whenever he turns tangible. And honestly, we're way more scared of the mansion's freaky piano than this cowardly ghost. Seriously, that piano is nightmare fuel. Bandibug Stack from the Galaxy games can only take 2 hits, but at least they're more of an aggressive foe, and you don't have to fight them 3 times in the same world. And real quick, I just want to say thanks to the company eWin Racing for sending me over their Flash XL gaming and office chair. They were actually cool enough to send me one out of the blue, and to be honest, I never realized how much I needed a high quality office chair. It's super comfortable, but more importantly, it's got a great ergonomic design that's really good for your back and posture. I use it to play video games, but I also do a lot of video editing and just general work at my desk for hours every day. And this chair is just so much better than my old one. eWin Racing chairs are really slick when it comes to their design, really comfortable, and most important, ergonomic, which you really need if you're spending a lot of time sitting. And they also gave us a promo code. So if you want to pick up an eWin Racing chair, use the promo code 1UPBinge and you'll get an extra 20% off. Continuing with this intergalactic bug extermination, Mario's got to use his aerial power-ups to squash Bug-a-Boom in both Galaxy games. Bees or clouds, take your pick. He'll instead be going all the way to his Jumpman roots when he takes on Donkey Kong in Odyssey's Metro Kingdom. Mario will have to dodge barrels and climb rafters to reach Pauline, just like the arcade classic that started it all. On the subject of bosses that hang out in one place, the polluted piranhas that guard various areas of Isle Delfino don't put up much of a fight themselves. That said, they will spread their nasty paint and spawn goop-filled minions of their own, so Mario will want to spray them down quickly. Gooper Blooper is another stop on Super Mario Sunshine's Island Cleanup Tour. It will attempt to smash Mario with its tentacles or gunk up the area with ink, but its lack of mobility leaves it an easy target. The same is true of the giant spider Tarantox, although Mario will have to be quick if he wants to avoid its toxic spray and expose its vulnerable underside. Glamdozer can actually move around, but she can't do much when Mario clambers beneath her arena and attacks her from below. As with many other bosses on this list, she'd be much more of a threat if she picked a better battlefield. There's obvious weak spots, and then there's Sorbetti with its giant red nose. This pile of slush also isn't really intimidating when all it can do is roll around. At least the Womp King can try to crush Mario, and he's got a few extra tricks in his Galaxy 2 rematch, but his fragile backside is still an easy target for Mario to stomp. In the end, he's just another stone to be trod on. We ought to feel a bit guilty about beating up on the Dino Piranhas, as they're just newborns fresh out of their eggs. But they will happily chase Mario around their small planets looking to chow down on their first taste of Plumber. In Galaxy, Mario will have to smack their tails into their bodies, while in the sequel, he'll be going directly for Pee-wee Piranha's exposed backside. But we are still ranking them fairly low, as even the strongest among them, the fiery Dino Piranha, isn't a serious challenge. Neither is Prince Bully from 3D World or his cat counterpart from Bowser's Fury. They've got fireballs and a pushy attitude befitting their name, but they're all too easily stuffed inside the pipes lining their areas. We will give props for being one of the funnier ways of defeating a Mario boss though. The Squirmy Wiggler of Super Mario 64 is much less of a laugh, only ranking this high because of dodgy collision detection making it harder than you'd think to land a hit on his head. Later 3D Mario games allow bosses to feel threatening on their own merits. 3D World's motley boss blob is more goofy than dangerous, which isn't surprising for a big bouncing clown. But in his second appearance, the shockwaves produced by his bounces can make it harder to reach him to get in and attack. King Cthulhu might be one of the strangest looking bosses in the series, but get a handle on his erratic movements and he's ultimately a straightforward jump on him 3 times and you win style encounter. Squizzard's battlefield boasts more hazards taking place in the middle of a sandy sinkhole. He has a few attack patterns, but the Fire Flower handles everything he can throw at Mario without much trouble. Sticking to the sand for now, the Histocrats can pelt Mario with an array of projectiles and summon snake minions from under the surface. The second pink Histocrat ups the ante even further with fiery boulders, and even more snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? Eels aren't much better, but in fairness, the gigantic Eelymouth isn't actually out to attack Mario. However, his appalling gingivitis has poisoned the waters of Nogi Bay, and the plumber will have to contend with poison in the eel's suction during his turn as an amateur underwater dentist. Come to think about it, is that the weirdest job that Mario's ever had? You decide. Moving along to more mobile foes. The Fury Shadows race around the islands of Lake Lapcat. Mario will have to dodge stage hazards as he chases down these dark Luigi doppelgangers. The Fury Shadows clearly took their inspiration from Sunshine's Shadow Mario. He menaces Isle Delfino with the power of graffiti and bad PR. And Mario will need to hose him down in each world to clear the island of this messy menace. Now, we're ranking Shadow Mario above his spiritual successor in Bowser's Fury for several reasons. He's more persistent, sure, but his lack of a health bar and Mario's lack of standard attacks in Sunshine can really draw out the length of these encounters if your flood skills aren't up to par. Odyssey provides a water spraying power-up of its own, and Mario will have to make use of those abilities in the battle against Mollusk Lancieur. The gargantuan octopus will surf through the shallows of the Seaside Kingdom, spitting shells and dodging Mario's attacks on his head. He'll have to be hosed down with water from a captured Gushin. It is a letdown though that his rematch in the Mushroom Kingdom moves the action to the sky, a wide open space with no environmental distractions to get between Mario and the boss. The plumber has a long history of taking down enemies with his platforming prowess as opposed to raw skill. The Tail Bowsers of 3D Land pay homage to the earliest fights against the Koopa King, tasking Mario with hopping across platforms and avoiding fireballs for his chance to drop the masquerading minion into the lava. But Mario will have to take a dive himself to battle Kingfin. The skeletal shark certainly looks imposing, but it mostly relies on its minions to threaten its opponents. Much like with Eelymouth, half the danger here lies in managing Mario's air supply underwater. Boss Brolder is another enemy with minions of his own, and in his case, they're Mario's ticket to taking him down. Hopefully his little Brolders get some sort of hazard pay, since they're just as much in danger of getting squished by their master as he rolls along. Onward to another throwback fight. Big Bully and Chili Bully are some of the most aggressive bad guys around, as they'll charge straight at Mario as soon as they spot him. He'll have to score a ring out of his own and knock them off their platforms, which is easier said than done in Chili Bully's case, courtesy of the arena's ice physics. Rollodillo would be a lot more frustrating if it faced Mario on the ice, but without that slippery hazard, its charging attacks are fairly easy to dodge. You can give it a taste of its own medicine with the rolling might of Rock Mario. Dig-a-Leg's battle is even more about proper timing, requiring Mario to dig straight through the small planetoid and attack the robot's defenseless underside, fighting drills with even more drills. Continuing with Earth-themed menaces, Major Burrows tunnels through the ground at a respectable speed, but too bad for him, he's an easy target once he's on the surface. Now, King Boo in Super Mario Sunshine doesn't move from his spot in the center of the arena, but appropriately for a fight accessed through a casino. There is a high degree of randomness to this battle. You have to hope for good luck on the Ghost slot machine if you want to damage him, which you do by feeding him peppers, which is just super random. So far we've seen bosses that are highly mobile and other bosses that rely on their underlings or their artillery to get the job done. But as the bad guys grow more powerful, we'll start to see these two strategies in tandem. Giga Lakitu is armed with the usual spinies as well as a powerful lightning attack from his very angry Thundercloud. and it's up to Yoshi to gobble up the Koopa's own minions and spit them back at him. Baron Burr steps up the challenge with a battlefield that's out to get Mario. He'll have to navigate through chunks of ice to reach Burr's perch, and after that contend with shockwaves and frozen projectiles. There's even more to juggle in the battles against Top Maniac. It needs to be knocked into the electrified fences that line the area, all the while dodging smaller tops and preventing Mario from getting shocked himself. And this top won't quit either. With Prankster Comets taken into account, it's fought more times than any other boss in Super Mario Galaxy. Now, we're awarding extra points for persistence here. Super Mario Sunshine introduced us to the recurring boss, Petey Piranha. Although the top-heavy floor is fought only twice in its debut game, it nonetheless earns its memorable status. The second battle can be especially frustrating, with Petey taking to the skies above Bronco Hills, where Mario struggles to reach him with FLUDD, and he'll have a lot of goop to clean up after that showdown. While we're on the subject of nasty bad guys, let's talk about the first of the Broodals clan. Spewer trails poison wherever he goes, forcing Mario to clean it up if he hopes to get close enough to attack the Mad Rabbit. You may feel like you're playing Splatoon for a bit, but Spewer does himself no favors by largely sticking to arenas where there's plenty of room to maneuver. He would be far more deadly in close quarters. And that sure is true for Irok, the golem lurking in Super Mario 64's pyramid that attempts to crush Mario or shove him into the nearby pit. Irok was the first in a line of similarly designed Nintendo 64 bosses. He's the most straightforward by a long shot, but they had to start somewhere. Returning to the Broodals, we have Harriet. Bombs are both her weapon of choice and her main weakness, as Mario will have to toss them back at her to remove her protective hat and give her a good old-fashioned stomping. Rango's hat, on the other hand, operates like a boomerang with a strangely bouncy underside, one that Mario will have to use to get a clear shot on the unusually tall rabbit. The Broodals really cornered the market in weaponized hats, and we haven't even gotten to the worst one yet. And that's not their manager, Madame Brood, either. But she's a powerful foe all the same. She'll sick her golden pet Chain Chomp on the plumber, and he'll have to avoid its charges and sharp teeth for the chance to take control of the Chomp and smack its master in the face. He'll be doing the same thing with Coconuts in the battle against Prince Picanti. This is another one where the boss is tougher on account of his choice of arena. Picanti will assault Mario with fireballs as he drives around on the ice. Between the projectiles and the slippery ground, you'll really have to watch your footing. Now we get to a nasty duo of bosses that are also incredibly difficult to rank. Boom Boom roars back from a long absence after Super Mario Bros. 3 with a vengeance, popping up numerous times in both 3D Land and 3D World, as well as Bowser's Fury. His flailing fighting style is essentially unchanged each time, although he likes to mix it up with different environmental hazards. 3D World additionally gives him some momentary invisibility, making it harder to avoid his spinning shell. Boom Boom's female counterpart, Pom Pom, is a craftier foe, tossing boomerangs at Mario and hovering in midair when she retreats into her shell. Her new tactic in 3D World entails confusing her opponent with nearly identical clones, which she may have picked up from Lemmy and Wendy. Torque Drift, on the other hand, doesn't need any allies to be dangerous. It's a UFO armed with a full complement of lasers and a protected core that Mario needs to break through using a captured uproot. Controlling this slow-moving creature will make it more difficult to maneuver around Torque Drift's attacks, especially in the Mushroom Kingdom rematch, where it's backed by a set of pylons that release shockwaves on their own. Another rogue in the Odyssey Mushroom Kingdom's gallery, Knuckletech, has no need for any of that fancy sci-fi stuff. All he needs are his fists, for stomping, slapping, and firing off icy missiles. Unfortunately for him, that's all Mario needs to knock him out as well. The always versatile Cappy can take command of Knuckletech's stone hands, and use them to lay the smackdown on this god of the Sand Kingdom. A boss from another kingdom, Kukateel, doesn't look as bad at first glance. I mean, how bad could a giant bird in a chef hat be? Well, pretty bad as it turns out, as it will try to cook up Mario in its giant stew pot, while tossing a variety of savory missiles. Once again, Cappy's transformation powers are the key to this boss battle, but it'll also require some precise platforming to get Mario up to where he can punt the fowl into its own pot for some chicken soup. Now we're really getting into the heavy artillery. the undergrunt gunners of Super Mario Galaxy pilot cannons that lob water or electricity at their targets. While they may be stationary, each of them takes advantage of their environment, demanding Mario deploy power-ups and fancy footwork to work around spikes and electricity, and make it up to the gunner's perch. The one in the Toy Time Galaxy deserves special recognition for sitting atop an obstacle-laden tower as it fires down at Mario. Monty Moles may be content with mere turrets, but any mechanized monstrosity commanded by Bowser or his son is always going to go big or go home. Mecha Bowser may well be the largest such device, piloted by the Junior.
Leave my mama alone, you bad man. I won't let you take Mama Peach away. Mama?
Although Junior doesn't take full advantage of its power by confining it inside a theme park. It's packing a flamethrower and arsenal of bullet bills to shoot at Mario as he careens around on a roller coaster firing rockets at the mech, violating who knows how many park safety standards in the process. Mega Leg can just about rival Mecha Bowser in size, even if it's stuck on a planet only just big enough to support it. Thankfully, Mario gets to fight this one on foot, scaling the metallic limbs that give Mega Leg its name, and turning its own bullet bills against it. Quite a few of the bosses in the Galaxy games are fought on such planetoids, and we're giving Gobblegut the prize for the best use of the disorienting effects of a small spherical battlefield. Gobblegut's got a fearsome bite and enough strength to tunnel through the tiny planet, and the upgraded black version that Mario faces in the Battle Belt Galaxy adds lava into the mix. It's a struggle just to keep track of which way is up when taking on these dragons. Now we finally made it back to the Brutals. Ordinarily, we'd have expected Topper to place lower in the rankings since he's the first of his group to challenge Mario. But Topper ups his game more than any of his cohorts, adding ever more hats with each fight. By the time Mario's made it to the Rabbit Ridge Tower, the Brutal leader's sporting so many spiked top hats that they fill the battlefield, and it'll take some fancy footwork to not get tripped up. Now, while we're playing the floor is lava, let's look at the boss that uses actual lava instead of hats. King Caliente is a huge step up in difficulty from his cephalopod cousin, Gooper Blooper. In addition to the variety of fiery attacks he brings to bear, Caliente's also been taking notes from bosses in The Legend of Zelda, deflecting the projectiles Mario bats back at him over and over until one of them slips up. His second fight will be even more of a strain, with sinking platforms ensuring that Mario will always have to be on the move. Camilla combines similar levels of firepower with high mobility of her own, not to mention a team of Magikoopa minions ready to add to the chaos. She gets even more dangerous in the Deep Dark Galaxy, where she's learned how to teleport and take advantage of the cramped quarters of the Crow's Nest. From the top of a ship to the top of a castle tower, the Ruined Dragon more than earns its title as the Lord of Lightning, with a whole host of electrified attacks. It may also be the scariest boss in any Mario game, an unusually realistic looking dragon assaulting Mario in the midst of a storm. You'll have to be quick to avoid getting zapped and expose the weak spot beneath the dragon's crown. The Robo Brood may not be as intimidating, but as a robot mech combining the powers of all the Brutals, it's even more of a struggle to take down. Mario won't be able to do it alone either. Instead, he'll need to rely on captured enemies to destroy the bot's leg armor and stun it long enough to target the Brutals in their cockpits. All the while, he'll have to deal with bombs, spinning discs, and the mech's charge attack. It's basically a brutal all-star brawl. Still, when it comes to robot fights, we've got to hand it to Bowser Jr. in the Galaxy games. Whether he's piloting his airship, the fully armed Mega Hammer bot, or the towering Boomsday machine, Junior puts out more firepower than anyone else in the Koopa Troop. It's that last encounter that winds up as the Tyrannical Tyke's personal best, with missiles, spinning fire wheels, vacuum suction to disrupt Cloud Mario's attempts to climb the tower, and even tank treads for mobility. It's a good thing for Mario that Junior hoards all this top-of-the-line tech for himself, rather than putting it in the hands of his rank-and-file minions.
Someday, when I'm bigger, I wanna fight that Mario again.
It's gonna take some unexpectedly strong bad guys to top a performance like that. Bouldergeist is another one of those head and two hands bosses, but one that really puts its paranormal control over stone to good use. Not only can it cover itself in rocks to protect its body, but it can also toss them at Mario, form them into hands to attack and block, and even create waves of stone pillars. The ghost might be helpless once it's stripped of its armor, but it's getting to that point that's the problem. That's also true of Wiggler in Super Mario Sunshine. It might be much larger than most other Wigglers, but what really earns it a place this high in the ranking is its speed and erratic movements. The only way to damage Wiggler Wigglers to spray plants on the beach that will trigger the eruption of sand structures that will flip the big bug upside down. But the timing needed for these can be incredibly frustrating. Admittedly, it can be worse though. Imagine this boss fight if the Wiggler hadn't cleared those obnoxious cataquacks off the beach first. Even worse than a giant enraged caterpillar is a giant enraged caterpillar robot, and it's one that's taking the bronze medal of power. Mecha Wiggler clings to the side of New Donk City Hall, firing off the electricity it's stolen and occasionally phasing onto the ground level to charge Mario. What makes this creepy teleporting bug harder to squish is that Mario will need to take control of a slow-moving tank to have enough firepower to damage it. Mecha Wiggler doesn't get an upgrade for its rematch in the Mushroom Kingdom, but it does come as a pair now. Mayor Pauline really needs to get tougher on the electricity siphoning robot bug problem. But if she's got problems, pity the poor hotel manager of Serena Beach. The elusive Phantomanta takes our silver medal for power, as it's one of the toughest bosses in all of 3D Mario games. It may only appear to be a bright shadow of a manta ray gliding across the ground, but it leaves behind a trail of electric goop in its wake that can bury people and structures alike, and will give Mario a painful zap if he so much as brushes against it. That makes hovering over Phantomanta to break it into smaller pieces all the more difficult, especially near the end when tiny aggressive mantas are swarming all over the beach and painting it with lethal sludge. It's hard to watch where you're stepping when the whole map is a danger zone. However, we all knew who was going to take the gold medal for most powerful boss in 3D Mario games, and that honor has to go to Bowser, the final boss in every one of these games. And while he's taken many forms and employed many strategies over the years, each one of them stands as the ultimate test at the end of Mario's journey. Bowser has fought more than 20 times against all 8 games, and as might be expected, not all of his battles show him at his full strength. His early appearances in 64 and Sunshine don't really impress, with their challenge coming more from getting the angle just right when spinning him around or taking him seriously when he's chilling out in a hot tub. He quickly steps up his game by the time Galaxy comes around though, with his usual tactics of fireballs, shockwaves, and the time-honored Koopa Shell spin. Later games power Bowser up even more, seeing him grow big enough to punch planets in Galaxy 2, swipe Mario's power-ups for himself in 3D World, or get him into the weaponized hat game in Odyssey. But we're handing out the prize for the strongest of the strong to Fury Bowser's kaiju-sized throwdowns with Mario in the game that bears his name. These boss battles combine all of Bowser's strongest skills, massively scaled up for maximum carnage. All that's left to consider is just how the Koopa King is going to outdo himself again in the future.